A lot of you have probably thought about making a video game, and you may have tried before. You follow a couple of tutorials and you start getting excited because you made a cube move. A stream of ideas start to pour out, how you can make this and that and maybe a twist here, but when you continue you not only realize how hard it is, but the sheer amount of tasks that you have to do for making a tangible product out of your ideas is massive. You use Blender to make objects, but this damn tank just looks wrong when you move the tracks. At some point you just get overwhelmed by how many things you have to learn to make it work, so you just think, I'll do this later, and just quietly drop it. Maybe you let school or life have your focus instead. But it doesn't have to be this way. This happened to me too. There are plenty of games out there with whole genres being already mastered and having a sort of defined baselines of features, or meta if you would like to call it. But funnily enough, meta might just be the answer. You can pick up a Quest 2 headset for $400 right now, or even $300 later this year when the new Quest 3 launches, and you can start making games in VR, where the rules aren't clear yet, and there is much empty space for games to fill in. You can define a new era of games, like how regular PC games rose to prominence in the late 90s, and it's not too late. There are still very few AAA games out, so you can just make an above average performance and that would be more than enough. Even if you are by yourself, no team, with only one computer and a headset. But how, you say? It's already plenty hard to learn how to make a regular game? Well, you just have to take it one step at a time, and especially challenge yourself, make a deadline, or better yet, join an event where you have to make it in time. So this was exactly what I did by joining the 2023 VR Game Jam hosted by Valem and other big YouTubers. Now that I joined, I did what everyone would first do, and that is to go on a complete tangent and learn how to export another project of mine to Quest 2 standalone. That would help me later in exporting the game faster, right? Anyway, now would be a good time to say that I actually did another game before this, for a high school festival of mine. I made a cool poster, brought even my PC there, and I had a lot of fun letting guys try it and discussing what options they had to get into VR, like what headsets to get, what hardware to buy, or what to upgrade for SteamVR to work fine, so they can try getting into it too. Regardless of that, I am using Unreal Engine 5 and I thought I can just press the project button and see the Android option, but I had a lot more work ahead of me. In fact, it took me the entire day to figure out through YouTube tutorials not only what version I needed of Android Studio, VR works on Android by the way, but what other APIs, SDKs and NDKs are necessary to run, and they weren't even the latest ones. After that, Unreal Engine detected my headset, but it still wouldn't compile because after a bit of digging and looking through the error texts, I realized that you have to find these SDKs and manually reference their locations in Unreal Engine 5 and in Windows by editing the system environment settings. On the upside, I now know how to set the specific versions of any program that I have, like Java. So after all of this, it finally compiled my game, and I could just upload the folder with the executable on the Quest with an USB-C cable. Content with figuring all of this out, I went to sleep. Everything begins with an idea, and the idea for this game had to be related to special deliveries, because that is what the Game Jam's theme is. I first thought of being a warehouse employee. That would be easier to make, but also kind of boring and static. The rules said no excessive violence or gore, but my mind was drifting to combat. Maybe sending important packages in Nazi-occupied Paris? No, that was too grand, but I think of VR as a medium suited best to grandness and big views. Maybe I could settle on something like that and I just make a package delivery to the top of the Eiffel Tower. That is hard, but it is doable, so I set out to do just that. This is the day that I figure I should record some footage of the progress, so I did. I used the default VR template project provided by Unreal Engine 5. For a start, I just made a new level and chose it to be an open world one instead of the default empty one, so I could have enough space to work with. After that, I made the Seine and River by using the landmass and water plugins. After that, I selected landscape mode, sculpt, blueprint, and then used the brushes that I needed. As you can see, I can make any kind of river with these spline points. After that, I used the foliage mode to place trees around the place of the tower. Now onto the Eiffel Tower itself. I used the modeling tools to get this done without using Blender, and I made the support beams out of simple elongated cubes. Up until now I simply used the default VR pawn with its included movement and our behaviors, but I knew I had to at least make the movement continuous and with the thumbstick, not with teleportation. You would think that would be easy, but some tutorials misdirected me into using a 2D vector input instead of a one-dimensional one, and I could only make it work by moving in the direction of where you are looking right now, or the world's cardinal directions, a sort of proto-movement. So I took the rest of the day off and went to a concert. The Scorpions aren't really my favorite, but I was surprised by the drum solo. After getting home, I finally figured out late in the night that I should map the X and Y directions separately. So this is how I've done it. Let's just hop into the VR pawn. So let's just see how it works in the first place. So this is the event graph for the player, and these are all the normal standard made by the Unreal Engine VR template. Let's just see, this is the teleportation and snap turn movement. I've pulled off the pins so it doesn't work anymore, and I've replaced them up here with my own movement. So let's just explain how it is. I basically use two axes, the x-axis and the y-axis to move. Y is forward and backwards, x is left and right. Went into the inputs and had to go down, make a folder and make some joystick input, and here I changed the value type to an axis one-dimensional. I've done one for the x-axis and one for the y-axis. I've returned here on the basically manager for inputs, and I mapped two more things. For moving left to right, I basically used the input on the left controller on the thumbstick, the x-axis, and the other one is the y. Just plugged it in here. You just, add action mapping, you type whatever thing you used, and then you do whatever you want. You can even use like keyboard or Xbox controller or anything. You look, keyboard, enter, pause, any of these. And then I went back to the VR pawn and I inputted this input action. Yeah, so IA move X, yeah, enhanced action events, and then I put in a movement input, basically just to get your character going, and then for the world direction I used the vectors for either what is the forward direction of where your head is looking, or the right direction, basically left and right. So yeah, let's just I should probably change this up into a comment. C left and right continuous movement, and another one forward and backwards continuous movement. Okay, let's just put it right here, and yeah, there it is. Let's just compile this once again, and I'll hop into VR and show you. Okay, so here we are in VR, and as you can see, I mean, you can't really see the thumbsticks, but if I move my thumbstick forward, I go forward. If I go backwards, it goes back to the sides. I can even look in another direction. If I point it forwards, I just go in this direction. So yeah, basically what every VR game should have. And then it worked. It's almost time and I still didn't have a lot done, so I went on to making climbing to the top possible. I made the rest of the stairs and I started making an elevator. I thought it would be harder to make, but there was a simple animation like screen to make it rise smoothly. Now, this is VR, so I had to make this more physical, not just some laser pointer interaction, so I made a red button that you could press. Actually, it just checks for overlap, so put your hand in there to start the elevator and get you to the top level. Then I made a sign to give you your objective. Deliver this package to Gustav Eiffel on the top floor, the engineer who made it, by the way. It's basically a clipboard with a note on it, and I added a grab component to the main actor so you can hold it in your hand, and I enabled gravity so it can fall down. Then I made the package itself, just a box that you can grab in the same way as the one before, but without gravity so you don't drop it. Originally I wanted to make an inventory of sorts where you put it on your back and grab it out at the end, but that was too time consuming for me to make. Now the heat is really ramping up. This is the last day and I have to get it done. I make some railings so you can't fall down, and because that's how the tower is made. There is a small room on the top floor in real life, so that's where I would place Gustav. But I couldn't make it too fancy, so it's just a simple box basically. It was already evening and I was starting to get nervous. If it couldn't be worse, I had to go to the dentist then, and so another hour or so was lost. I used the metahuman provided by Unreal as Gustav Eiffel, some old looking guy that filled the bill. I make him a desk, a chair and a crate for fancy top hats. That was supposed to be the item in the package. Now there were only 3 hours left. I wanted to make a parachute for the exit and land on the other side of the river, so I make a rudimentary landing target as an X, and I try to make a check for you dropping the package in the crate that enables you to glide out of an open door, and maybe a red light that turns green, but it was just too much. With only 2 hours left, I barely had any time, so I filled in the textures from the default ones, and I made some glass tiles, just like there are in real life. Now only 1 hour is left, so I start to compile for Windows, and the big first problem. It wasn't working because it couldn't compile a plugin that I was using for free assets, so I uninstall it and reinstall it, but to no avail. I just removed them entirely and start again. It's progressing way too slowly, so I just cancel it and try to ship it as a project. I see that my project, which was 10 gigabytes, was exceeding the limit of 1 gigabyte, so I had to use a Dropbox. I make an account, try to upload it, but I couldn't select the folder. I decided to zip the project, but the clock was ticking rapidly. I watch it go down and time is up. All this effort, and what did it amount to? I couldn't make it in time, so was it even worth it? Maybe. Of course I couldn't expect everything to go well right off the bat, so why should I mull over it? I learned so much in making this, and even if it was a failure, every learner fails or he isn't trying hard enough. I won't let this bring me down, and neither should you. To get this experience you have to get out there and put yourself on the line, because this isn't the end, but the beginning of something greater. I will continue, and I will show you my path down this road with all the successes and failures, because this is what I love, and if you watch this video up until this point, then I'm sure you do too. So follow me, and I will show you how much more can be done in this new industry. Games even better than ones like Boneworks are still yet to be made, and I wish to make one of those that surpasses the current one. I hope you liked this video format, and I hope we can meet again. Goodbye. If you felt inspired, then press on the video on the right where you can watch me play a VR game made by only one developer, and that meets or exceeds the quality of Half-Life Alyx and Boneworks. Catch you later.